Hi, everyone. Today is a very special session for someone that's very near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about and talk to the a chief architect, the creator of PowerShell. In my world and my mind, like a .NET guy that builds in the Windows world, he's basically the Jedi master, basically. He's the guy that basically helped a lot of us, literally millions of engineers out there, with automation, with architecture through PowerShell, but there's a lot of story around PowerShell, and there's a lot of story
Mhm.
behind the person, the mind behind PowerShell, the story to get there. What is the Monad Manifesto? How do we get to, kind of timeless, systems design and architecture? Today, I'm very pleased and honored to meet Mr. Jeffrey Snover. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Great, great. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate you. Let's just get started. Do you want to tell people a little bit about you and before PowerShell and before all that? Who is Jeff Snover?
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm a college dropout. I studied physics and philosophy at the University of New Hampshire, and I kept running out of money. And I'd like drop out and get a job, drop out, get a job, get enough money, come back, run out of money, do that, rinse and repeat. Then I got involved in computers. Like, man, this is fun, and then I just fell into that hole and just have been in computers ever since. And so I've been having fun. Worked at lots of companies that then failed, big companies that failed, startups that failed, etc. And then got to a gig at Microsoft. And at Microsoft, I was originally hired to be the kind of chief architect for all the management technologies and products
Hmm.
as Microsoft was trying to get into the enterprise. At the time, say the defining user experience of the PC at that time was called the blue screen of death.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, it's not really going to work for enterprises. We need to do better. And then eventually realized that what we're going to need is a command line interface. Had some struggles getting with that, and eventually shipped PowerShell and became a distinguished engineer and then technical fellow. And after a while, I then left and joined Google. I was there for the last 3 years and recently retired.
Amazing, amazing. And just for people to understand, like the rank at Microsoft, because I was there as well, and I know like these levels. There's an engineer, and then there's senior and principal. Distinguished is a big deal. Technical fellow, that's like outside of this world. I told you, Jedi Master. I told you this. Big deal. Distinguished engineer, just for everyone to know, like the dude that built ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core. If anyone knows who David Fowler is, he's behind some of these technologies. That dude is a distinguished engineer. Already where he is already very high and very big. Mr. Jeff here is above that. He's at the technical fellow level. That's super rare.
Well,
Amazing.
just to put that in focus, we
Mhm.
had at the time we had what I guess 250,000 employees. There were 11 individual contributor technical fellows. 11.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
like 0.005%.
Out of the whole company. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at it, even at the technical, like the whole tech space, all the big companies, the Googles and the Amazons and Microsoft, and then everybody else, it's really just a handful of the equivalent of a technical fellow.
Yeah. By
So,
the way, fun fact:
mhm,
I was Microsoft's most inspirational technical fellow.
of course you are. Of course.
Now, why
Those,
is
I
that? And the answer is,
feel,
being one of 11, these
mhm,
are people who, like had invented Ethernet and invented, two-phase commit. These were like the tops of the industry, just
yes.
people you read about in your textbooks, right? And most engineers would look at that and just say, but then they'd look at me, a schmuck who dropped out of the University of New Hampshire, and it's like, but if that guy can make it, I got a shot. So I provide an inspiration to
Oh
people.
my God, stop it. You're amazing. You're
Oh,
amazing, dude.
no, what I've realized is that luck plays an incredible role in your career. It really
Yes.
does. And one of the things that gets you between principal engineer and then partner there's three things everybody looks at. By the way, this is universal across all companies, right?
Yes,
All
it's true.
companies, there's this line of the bulk of the engineering community, and then you call it what you want. We at
Yep.
Digital called it consulting engineer. I was Microsoft, or Digital's youngest consulting engineer,
Yep.
like that. At IBM, I forget what we called it, and then at Microsoft, we called it a partner.
Hmm.
And it turns out that across all tech companies, they all have different terms and technologies and processes, et cetera, but they're all really looking at the same three things. And
Hmm.
they are number one, technical twinkle, right?
Hmm.
That you're able to do something that other engineers look at and they say,
Yep.
damn, I wish I had
Yep.
done that.
Yep.
Or that you can solve a class of problems that 10 other engineers couldn't
Have
solve.
to know how to do it. That's right. Like a 10x guy, like you a one man army, basically.
There you
Hmm.
go. And then so it's a technical twinkle and then business impact. So here's the thing. There's a huge difference between a great technology and a great
Hmm.
technology that brings in $100 billion of revenue a year. Okay. So
Yeah.
now imagine you have two engineers, and I've seen this, right? Two engineers equally good, working on stuff, and then the sales force says, "Hey, if you sell this one, you get your bonus, and if you sell this one, who cares?
Yep.
This guy's going to have more business impact than this one. What the
Yep.
engineer have to do with it? Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Luck plays an incredible role in being able to get over that. So anyway, I understand deeply the role of luck. So
Yep, yep, yep.
those lucky guys.
But I have to tell you, like, just what you do and what you've created, and just your mindset approaching systems in general. It's there's luck, sure, but there's a lot more than that in there, and I really appreciate you for that. Well, let me
Well,
ask you this. Go
here's
ahead.
one
Sorry. Go
thing.
ahead.
So then there's that partner level, and then there's a couple levels to get to distinguished engineer, and there's a couple levels to get to technical fellow.
Yep.
Essentially, it's the same things, all those three things, but it's consistency. Turns out
Mm.
there's luck and then there's consistent luck, and they really are different.
Roll
They're
the
really
dice
different.
5 times. It's gonna be exactly one. Let's see how that works.
And
Go ahead.
then it's the ability to do it at broader and broader scales, right?
Oh,
So we say that partner is influential in his area, his product area, that a distinguished engineer has impact across his division, and that technical fellows have impact across the company and across the industry. So it's
amazing.
it's it's consistency and then scale,
Do you,
and then
do you
but
remember?
it's the same three things.
Interesting. Do you remember what a technical fellow is? I know a principal is 65, 66, 67, right? And then you have a distinguished, I think they give them, it's not a sequential number beyond that point. You were probably
Ah,
90 or something, or
I think
88,
80 or 90. Yeah, I
80 or
don't
90.
remember.
Yeah, that's just like, you just go that jump, that whole jump just to the technical fellow.
It's kind of
Amazing.
crazy. Yeah, it's
I,
good
I
life.
it is a good life. It is a good career. I wanted to ask you, like, tell me how you think about systems, just so everyone
Yeah.
understand. Jeff is not someone who just created PowerShell and then just went home. No, there's system design there. There's architecture involved there. Jeff was the architect for Windows Server, the chief architect for Windows Server. So there's a lot more there than what he may be known for. Tell me a little bit about that. How do you think about systems design? This is for the engineers, for the architects out there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, this, if somebody asked me what's the things you've changed your mind on the most in the last 5 years, it'd be this question. 5 years ago, I would have given you like a hardcore list of like this and this. Here's how you produce great designs. Now I can give you a slightly different answer. And I think the
Okay.
most important thing is appropriateness. What does the system mean? Now let me give an example to be really pointy, yeah,
Hmm.
and to get this in focus. Sometimes the right thing to do is to write crappy code.
Okay. Okay.
How can that make sense? How can it
Okay.
be the right thing to do crappy code? And the
Mhm.
answer is, as I worked with, I did some angel investing and working with startups, et cetera. And then at Google, I focused in on risk management.
Mhm.
Okay. Hey, what are
Mhm.
the risks here? It turns out that as you're starting out, your most important risk, like a startup company,
Mhm.
your most important risk is finding product market fit.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
and we know that the difference between writing code and writing good code is at least 10x harder to write good code, right?
That's right. That's
Error
right.
conditions, monitoring, all that stuff, 10x
Validation,
harder.
all of that. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now, if you go and write good code and then you get it out there and it takes you 10 times longer,
And
and
there's
then
no
you get it out
market
to
fit.
customers and they
Mhm.
say, that's not what we need.
You lost.
Well,
You lost a lot of
you
mhm,
lost all that time.
mhm.
And there's also like, but I got a big investment. Like, I don't want to throw that away.
Mhm.
And so, what does the system need? So, if you're a startup company, you don't have customers, you're not putting it in hospital systems or life support systems, like write crappy code so that you can have a
Just
quick
hit the
interact
ground as fast as possible. That's right. That's right.
and maximize your rate of learning.
Mhm,
And then when you
mhm,
figure out product market fit, then you got to say, okay, well, hey, again, you have the what is appropriate? What does I need?
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
hey, sometimes the answer is now I got to throw that away and write a good system. The other times, a lot of startup companies, the answer is no, no, no. I just need to like put some baling, bubble gum and baling wire on this because I'm going to sell it to some other company, and then they have to deal with this
Let them
shit.
deal with these problems. Mhm, mhm.
What's needed now? When you're dealing with Windows, guess what? That's an established thing. It's going to go out to the world. You ship something, it's going to have hundreds of millions of users. It's going to be on billions of machines. There, you need to write good code. That's what's
Yep,
appropriate.
yep,
Let's talk about that. So, in general, I'd say there are two things I think that are sort of the most important things when thinking about a system. And
mhm.
number one is to think in terms of states versus processes. A lot of people just think, oh, main, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then blah, blah, blah. And they just like think of processes. Like,
Mhm.
and in general, that produces kind of crap code. And what worked really well is to say, hey, wait, I have a systems of look, computers are a big state system. It's a big
That's right.
state.
That's
One,
right.
zero, one,
Yep,
zero. Okay.
yep.
And then you build it into components. Those components have states too. Is it initialized? Are you initializing? Is it initialized?
Ending,
Are
running,
you
yeah.
ready?
Mhm.
Is it are you operational? Do you have problems? Do you have net connectivity? Do you not have connectivity? Like there's a big difference between having connectivity and not having connectivity,
Yep.
right? And if
That's
your
right.
code doesn't
Mhm.
say, hey, these are very distinct things, and then when I have connectivity, I can do these things, and when I don't have connectivity, I can do those things. And if you just sort of say, I always have connectivity, everything's great, and then don't
Mhm.
have connectivity, and then everything goes to crap.
Mhm.
And same thing, like remember when you get like the stalled GUIs? Why
Yep,
is that?
yep,
Because
yep.
everybody assumed that the network was going to be up and that the network was going to be responsive.
But
Well,
it's
that's a
not.
bad
Yeah.
assumption. And then you got this synchronous call on something that's never coming back.
Yeah,
Like that's a
and now
bad
you're
world.
stuck. Yep.
And so
Mhm.
that brings me to my second thing. So number one is you always want to think in terms of states. Okay. And you're in this state and you want to move to that state. And you either
Mhm.
get there or you get back. Like that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And by the way, that's why that was so much the case with Windows, right? With Windows, I'd say, hey, if you're going to if you're going to change the system and it requires like 100 steps,
Mhm.
if you do 0 or 100, you're in good shape. If you do anything in between, that's a bad day.
Probably not.
That's not going to work. And by the way, it's one of the geniuses behind Unix, right? Like people don't realize this, but like think about Unix, right? The core difference between Windows and
Unix.
Unix, and
Mhm.
why I had to invent PowerShell, because originally, I don't know if you recall, but I just said, hey, we just need this model. The Unix
Yeah,
guys have it, we need it. And
yeah,
so it worked to get the services for Unix tools, right? Awk grep, sed, bash, blah, 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 available on Windows.
yeah.
And it turned out it did not help at all. And
Because
that's
of
why
the
when
infrastructure is different. This is files and this is APIs. They're kind of different.
well,
Uh-huh.
you get it. I didn't get
Uh-huh.
it. I had to step on that rake. Like, oh, why doesn't awk work? Because there's nothing interesting that in a file, right?
Yep.
Awk doesn't work against the registry. All the interesting shit's in the registry. It doesn't work
Yeah,
against WMI. All the interesting stuff's in WMI. It doesn't work against Active Directory. These are all APIs that return objects,
that's
whereas
right.
in Unix, everything is
Just
a
files.
file.
Yeah,
So
just files.
awk grep said those are management tools, right?
That's right.
And
That's
now,
right.
but here's the interesting thing. So that's cool. But now think about this. I bring up a file and I change and I change and I change and I change and I quit. I don't commit any of those.
Mm,
Or I change, and I save, and they all get committed at once. It's
mm.
a transaction.
Yes,
That's
yes.
why we added transactions to PowerShell with the idea of being able to say, hey, I start a transaction, I do these things, I either commit or I
Or
don't.
you can roll back. Okay, that's right. That's
Fortunately,
right.
that never really caught on, but that was
Mm.
the intent.
I mean,
So
it's good.
again, the idea is
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm here and I want to get there, or I come back here. Like that's it. Next is a
Go ahead.
little bit of a joke, but it
Yeah.
works. To say most software works when it works and fails when it fails. Right?
Oh,
Now, at some point, you listen to that and you think, "What a freaking idiot! What you said nothing." No, no, no. Think about it. It works when it
most
works,
software. Yeah.
fails when it fails. What does that mean? That means programmers write calls, they call APIs, and they assume it's going to work,
So it
and then
works.
they
Yeah.
when it works, everything works. And then when it fails, like I got to do something. Blah. I just yeah, and then when it fails, then the blah, that lack of thinking, that lack of thoughtfulness actually gets incurred, and then things go pear-shaped, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's true.
one of the things there was this turning point in my career, right? So I was at Digital, I was a development manager for the Ultrix team, and I was working on the port of OSF to our platforms, right? And
Mhm.
handling all this stuff. And one of my and I look at this NT stuff and say, wow, that's kind of interesting. They're doing some stuff that's interesting. Anyway, I had one of my engineers come to me, his head in his hands. He's like, "Oh my god!" I said, "What's the matter? Look at this code." And
Yeah.
we got this code from OSF, and it was the mail system, and it had this situation where if it had an error, the path was puke monkey guts abort. So printf puke monkey guts abort.
Oh
Like,
my God, that's hilarious.
what do I do there? And that was just like, yeah, this community, like cleverness
Yeah.
and is more important than usefulness.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, I want to be useful. And so that's when I kind of switched camps. That one
That
puke
one
monkey
thing.
that is the reason why it got me out of that camp and into this camp.
As soon as he said that error, I swear I don't know why, but all I could think about is Richard Stallman, open source community, just get clever, right? Playful, cleverness, and I think that's what kind of triggered the whole Linux kind of GNU slash Linux world. I have a I'm curious though, like, okay, you saw something that's happening in Linux, you wanted to bring that to Windows, and you're talking about usefulness, you're talking about value. Why? Why did you want the equivalent in the Windows world? Was automation kind of a first class citizen? Was it like they have this, we should have it too? No, it's not true. But what kind of why PowerShell?
Yeah. So there's two click stops here. The first click stop was basically just I knew that was a tool that was needed, right? So Microsoft had this model of make it all about the GUI, 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 GUI. And it's like, yeah, that's just not going to work, right? It might
Mhm,
work for a
mhm,
small business server, but it's not going to work for an enterprise. You really need this. The second was after I had joined, right before I had joined, they had
mhm.
started this third party to do an investigation about automation, Windows versus Unix. But when I came back, the report came, or joined, the report
Mhm.
came in and it said, two things. One, you can manage a very small subset of things in Unix, Windows than you can
Windows.
in
Yeah,
Unix.
yeah.
And then two, for the things that you can automate in Windows, it takes 10 times more effort to
Effort.
do
That's
than
right.
in Unix.
You have to write a whole program, and oh my God, yes.
It's
Do you
horrible.
remember COM objects? If this
And,
does
and
that
VB
sound familiar?
script. That was my joke about VB script, right? Like, there's the view of admins is one or two things. Either you're like Jim Alchin's mom and you can just click next, okay? Or you're like Dave Cutler, but you're not smart enough to figure out an if statement with brackets. Like, okay, get rid of the brackets and everything will be fine. Like, that was the problem. My friend,
Uh-huh.
it's the thing after the brackets is after
Yeah,
the if statement. It's just
yeah.
this hideously complex environment. But again, if you get rid of the brackets on the if statement, everything will be fine. So that was their view of the world. I was like, no, no, no. We need something like
More
an
solid.
admin automation
Yeah.
model. Anyway, so we this report came in, and I remember a Microsoft executive saying, "That's okay. Windows admins are 10 times cheaper."
Wow. Okay.
And
All
I
right.
was I was
You're
horrified.
probably
I
shocked.
was
Yeah, yeah,
insulted. I was shocked. I was like,
yeah,
and it turned out that was sort of like, now looking back, it was one of these things that sometimes things happen and you don't realize what's really going on. Just some alchemy going on.
yep,
It really kind of turned into my mission in life, right?
yeah.
One of the things people call me the heretic of Redmond, but the thing I love the most, someone at some points called me the patron saint of IT pros. And boy, does that feel good because
This
that's
is
because
good. Amazing.
I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't want Windows admins to be cheap. I want them to be the most expensive people on the planet.
that's
Now, let
right.
me be
That's
clear about
right.
this.
Yeah,
Expensive because they deliver that much value, right?
that's right.
If I'll give you $1 million if you earn me 10 million, if you can
That's
earn me
right.
100 million, I'd be happy giving you 10 million.
That's
Like
right.
what are paid or what is a function of how much value you add. So
That's
then the
right.
question is like, okay, well, why are they 10x more cheaper? And the answer is because they click next. Like that's
Yeah,
the
that's all they
job.
do. They point and grunt. That's it. There's no,
Like,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
and that might work for small business server, but it's
Mhm.
not going to work for the enterprise. Now, here's the thing. Now, anyone listening to this is like, "Oh my God, that's terrible." There's some logic to it, and
Yep.
it actually was reasonable. I just disagree. But here's the logic. Oh, we're going to compete against Unix. So what's the deal with Unix? Unix is an expensive operating system. We're an inexpensive operating system. Unix runs on expensive hardware,
Mhm.
Spark, VAX, etc. We
Yeah.
run on x86 PCs and servers, cheap.
Yep. Yep.
So cheap admins, expensive
Mhm.
admins. We got to have cheap
Cheap
admins.
admins.
We're going to be the
Yeah.
cheap stack. In fact, somebody once
Uh-huh.
said, oh, the Windows phenomena was like running important stuff on cheap shit.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
okay, but I object. Like all that stuff, this stuff can be cheap, but these people should be expensive because I want to be expensive. And then two is it doesn't really work, right?
yeah.
So again, it was all premised on the hey, if we can make it about the GUI, we win. So why doesn't that work? And the answer is the idea was, oh well, Jeffrey, we'll just send out we have these awesome program managers and they're going to go out and they're going to talk to a group of customers and they're going to understand their scenarios and then they come back and we're going to write a GUI and then we're going to deliver it to them and then their problems can be solved. Two
Uh-huh.
problems. One, yes, they do that 100%, absolutely. But the minute after they walk out of the conference room, that customer scenario changed.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. Yeah.
it changes constantly. It
Yeah.
is a river. You never step into it the same river twice.
That's
It
right.
changed. And
That's
number
right.
2, the answer is, wait a second. So they've got this problem. Their hair's on fire. And then the answer is, hold your breath. In 3
Until we
years,
get
I'll
you
deliver
an
you a
admin.
solution.
Yeah. Mhm.
What the hell's that?
No.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
no, a problem comes up. They need to be able to compose a solution, solve the problem, and
Ship
then
it.
either
Yeah.
codify it or
Yep.
do it again and again and again and again. So you need the solution. And if we can do it in such a way that they can make these people powerful,
Yeah.
then we can make them expensive. And I
Yeah.
want expensive Windows admins,
Yep.
full
Yep.
stop. And
Yep.
I got to tell you, the number of people that have come up to me and shared their stories with me and have said that they doubled, tripled, and in some cases quadrupled. But oddly enough, triple for I keep hearing this idea of tripling their salary over and over again. But there was this one case at one of the Florida conferences. I think it was
Mhm.
Ignite,
Mhm.
and a guy comes up to me and he tells me that story. But he says, "Hey, I tripled my salary, and it just provided us a life I never thought I could have." He
Mhm.
says, we own a home. I never thought I could own a home. And he said, and for the first time ever, a member of our family, my daughter, is going to go to college. And it
Mhm.
never would have been possible without
That's
this.
that's that's the most beautiful thing you could possibly hear. You enabled someone to have a higher quality life, more comfort, more abundance for their own living. That's what software is about, to make things easier for people. I think. I don't know. How did you feel when he told you that? You tell me.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. It was so moving. And I tell people, I said, like when I'm on my deathbed and I got a few breaths left, I'm going to think about that conversation and just say,
I did
no,
something. Yeah.
I did something. That was worth
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I want expensive IT pros.
Let me ask you this. So you got resistance, got pushback. Okay. You disagreed with it. okay, all this happened, but then it kind of evolved into even more organizational decisions, right? You were at this point, and then you got demoted for it, and you spoke about it 10 years after that. Tell me a little bit about that. If you want, of course. If you don't want to be like, okay, I didn't say anything.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what had happened was I was the lead architect for all the management technologies and products, and then there was a team that was trying to produce a shell, and they were going to go rewrite K shell. And I just knew, having stepped on that rake, I just knew that wasn't going to work, right?
Mhm.
And they were just like, "Well, we just need a checkbox. Unix has a shell. Well, our command.exe is crap. We need K shell." It's like, that's not going to work. And so I tried to explain, "Hey, here's what you should do," and they didn't understand it. And I kept talking, explaining it to them, whiteboard, and they weren't getting it. So it's like, okay, never mind. And so then I went and like locked myself in my office. And a month later, I had like a 10,000 line program. I mean, it was just cranked out code. And I said, let me explain. And I had all the core concepts of what you think of as PowerShell today. They were all there. I
Just
said,
for the
here.
just for the people who's watching, there was no chat GPT. Jeff actually wrote 10,000 lines of code by hand. There's nothing. He couldn't go to Stack Overflow and be like, "Hey, I'm trying to build a new tool. Any help?" There's no such a thing. I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I need to add that little context, because now people will be like, 10,000 lines. Claude could do that for me. Well, sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
in
Go
fact,
ahead.
originally when I was starting, I was doing it in, I was doing pipelines of XML, and I was going to have XSLT transforms, right?
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
by the way, it was a combination of things. One is they needed to do this, but second was that Bill Gates had been beating everyone but me up at .NET, .NET, .NET,
Yep.
and I was like,
Yep.
Bill, like, our hair's on fire, and .NET is not a bucket of water. I love it, but what I need is I need these things, and that ain't this. And he just kept beating us. And it's like, okay, well, I'll take this time and I'll learn. I'll do it in .NET. And so then I was doing .NET. I'm trying to do these XSLT transforms. It's like, yeah, that ain't gonna work. Like awk. You remember awk? I kept
Yeah. I
thinking,
remember.
oh,
Yeah.
it'll be like awk, right?
Yeah.
So the first time you look at awk and you're like, what the hell's that? And you're like, what? Huh? And then there's this point where it's like, "Oh, I get it," and then boom, you can do amazing things with awk. But there's this
Yeah.
like initial like, and I thought, well, XSLT will be the same thing. There's this initial, and
It's like
then
learning Vim for some developer.
there you go. Right. Initially hard and then becomes easy.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh, no, XSLT just sucks. There's 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 no point at which it ever like,
There's
"Oh,
no
now I
coming
get
back
it."
from it. It's just bad.
And so, but as I was doing this, then all of a sudden I looked like, oh, hey, wait, .NET has this reflection. Oh, well, wait a second. And then it's like, oh, now I can do what I want to do. And so that's where I produce that. Anyway, so I finally convinced them to do this. They saw it. They like, oh, now I get it. Yes, we got to do
Let's
this.
do it. Yeah.
And so then I said, hey, I want to do this. And basically, like, well, you got this big role, blah, 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 and this is just a checkbox item. And no, we don't think you should do that. And I said, you know what? Turns out this is the best idea I ever had in my life. I'm going to go do that. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to demote you. It's
Oh
like,
my God.
because it doesn't
That's
matter. Like,
yeah.
hey, and by the way, it's not, again, it's horrible, but it's not unreasonable from their point of view. You're like the top guy for a group of 700 people, and then you're
Mhm,
going to go off on this thing that, like, who gives a shit about the command line
mhm,
and like, yeah, I got to have a checkbox, but Jeffrey, I just got to have a checkbox. It's like, no, 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 it's
mhm.
really important. It's like, no,
This is
it
more
isn't.
than that. Yeah. I think
So
I think this is when you realize, I think, like, just thinking about it, I think this is, maybe you tell me, this is when
yeah,
it hits you that this is more than just a tool. This is beyond the tool. This is
yeah,
something bigger and better, right? All right. Sorry, go ahead. Uh-huh.
no,
So,
that's
yeah,
right.
don't build the tool. We're gonna demote you. Go ahead. Go
It
ahead.
was horrible. It was just terrible. I mean, and so it was deeply embarrassing. I didn't tell any of my friends. I had to tell my wife because it affected us financially, right?
Yeah.
But it was just horrible. But I looked at the code and I looked at what we were able to do. It's like, this is it's like looking at the face of God. It's like there's truth here. This is
This
real.
is
Like
it. This is my
why
calling.
the hell
Yeah. Yeah.
pipelines of text with this prayer-based parsing, like cut off 3 line, 4 line, 26 column, 27. Like what? Like this is no, this is the way it is. This is
Yeah.
truth. This is right. And it was just like, anyway, again, it was just like a, I don't know, spiritual experience. It's just like this,
Yeah.
well, or no, spiritual. When you see a great physics proof, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, like it's so beautiful. Anyway, it was like that. And so then
It's sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. It was just
I
one
was just
thing.
gonna tell you, like, this voice lives inside of a lot of engineers. They know this is the right thing to do. I need to know, I need to build this. This is my calling, right? I need to build this. It's just, it's sometimes very, very few. And I really want to ask you about what did you learn about protecting vision from that experience personally, but pushing through with it and doing it anyway, right? Because you know this
Yeah.
is the right thing to do. Tell me, how did that affect you personally? What did you learn out of this in terms of protecting your vision and believing that voice inside of you that tells you, do it. It's the right thing to do. What's your feedback there? Mhm.
Yeah, well, it's a high stakes game, as I'd say that.
Yeah.
And at some point, first off, it matters whether you're right or not.
Mhm.
So having a very clear hypothesis. So this is where like I then became convinced, it's one thing like, and then I wrote the Monad Manifesto. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen it, it's well worth document,
Yes.
worth reading, right?
Good
Because
document. Yes.
years later, we brought it out, dusted off, looked, and it's like, holy shit, is that
This is it.
accurate? And
Yeah.
you like wrote it at the very beginning. And we wrote it because we were working with India and like that communication just wasn't working. And somebody said,
Yep.
oh, well, you got to document everything. So
Yep.
it documented everything, and then that still didn't work. And we brought all the development back, and then it did work. And so part of this in the core was Section 10. Section 10 was the more market relevant statements, where you
Mhm.
say, by the way, if you're anybody doing a technology, I encourage you to do learn how to use the more market relevant statements. It's you have this intuition about things. It forces you to say it. And
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
saying it, it forces you to crisp up your thinking. And in crisping up your thinking, then all of a sudden you understand what your priorities are and where you can say, yeah, we can get a C here, and where like, no, I got to get an A here. There you
Yep.
go. So
Yep.
go to section
Y
10.
yep, I'm showing it side by side because I went through this document. It's amazing. But please go ahead, Jeff. You know, you were talking about the Monad Manifesto, and yep,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go to section 10 because this is
Section
the
10.
key thing. And so the hypothesis,
There you go.
yep, good, there it is. So these value propositions. So a more market relevant statement says for customer who, or for audience who qualifier, product value proposition,
Mhm.
unlike alternative or competitor, product differentiator. And you repeat, repeat, repeat. And then you know exactly what you're doing. For applications, developers who need to expose their administrative functions. You scrolled past me, buddy. There you go.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry. Go ahead, go ahead,
we're
go
doing
ahead.
the
For
first one.
application developers. Yep, yep, yep.
You're an app developer. You want to expose your admin functions as command lines and GUIs. We provide a productive development framework. So it's all about highly productivity. By the way, this
Yep.
is the case because we had to go to other teams whose hair's on fire and say, write a CLI, and they're going to say, I was like, well,
Yeah,
and by the way, they did. It's
yeah.
like, look, here's the deal. You just invest a little bit and then you get a lot. And there's like
Mhm.
this. And by the way, this is the AD team. The AD team, there's like that, right?
Yep,
And then
yep.
finally I said, can you just carve out somebody to do a prototype? And they did. And they spent like 2 or 3 weeks on the prototype. And when they came back, the team's like,
You can see it.
oh
You
my
can see it.
God.
Yep,
And then they
yep,
became like my best partner. Well,
yep,
second best partner,
yep, yep.
exchanging them. And they were just in. And so why? Because it was so productive. They did just a little bit of work and then, all these things. And well, why? What are the alternatives? Well, you could do it with command line, but then you got to do your parsing and you got to do this. We provide all that for you. Anyway, so that's kind of the
Amazing,
key. So
amazing. It's
one,
like, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Mhm.
you got to be right.
Mhm. Yeah, it helps when you're right. If you're gonna go all that way through with that trouble. Yeah, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead. Mhm.
exactly. And then two, at various points, like there was this initial getting demoted, but then we had some like, okay, they left us alone and we were doing our thing. But at some point, remember Vista? right? Vista,
Yes, Windows Vista, yeah.
Vista was not our finest hour, but it was the save. The
Uh-huh.
disaster was Longhorn. And what
Mhm.
had happened, like not many people know the story. It might be worth saying.
Yep.
So what had happened was Windows had a big business problem.
Mhm.
And the problem was Windows XP.
Mhm.
The problem was Windows XP was great.
Mhm.
So how could that be a business problem? And the answer was this. It was great, and we couldn't get anybody off Windows 98.
Uh-huh.
Windows
Uh-huh.
98 was a piece of crap, like literally crap, unfit for purpose, unfit for purpose.
Yeah.
If you called a kernel API with the bad parameter, you blue screen the machine.
Yes.
And this is
Yeah.
anybody. You didn't have to be admin, just regular old
Anybody.
call
Yeah.
just blue screen, just demonstrably unfit for purpose. XP, damn good.
Amazing. Very
Real
solid.
operating
Yeah.
system.
Mhm.
So you get this real operating system, but everybody was stuck on 95 and 98.
98.
And so here's the business problem. We knew that eventually we'd get them on 90 XP. But if it was that hard to get them off 98, how the hell were we ever going to get them off XP?
That's right. And it
That
was
was the
hard.
problem.
And it was hard. I know a lot of people just kind of stuck to Windows XP. Even though Vista was very shiny and beautiful and all the colors and everything, people still wanted XP, you know?
Does it work? It's great. And so here's what Bill said. He said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to engineer a moment. We're going to engineer a transition. We're going to draw a line in the sand. Nobody gets to invest on this side of the sand. Everybody's in on this. We're going to have a new way of programming. It's called
Mhm.
.NET. We're going to
Mhm.
have a new file system, WinFS. We're going to have a new communications model, Indigo, WinCP,
Mhm.
WCP. We're going to have a new programming model, Avalon, or GUI program, Avalon, or Windows Presentation Framework. Everything's going to be .NET, .NET, .NET. And then we're going to have this whole new class of machines that required to run it. Everybody's going to buy new machines. Everybody's going to re-release their software. We're going to create this new era. Brilliant business strategy. The technology was not there.
It's not there. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
people tried to say, "Hey, it's not there." Nobody was listening, right? I remember, but basically Jim Alton, like, people say this, but I have confidence in my team. I know people are going to sleep in their offices. They're going to smell bad. There's going to be some divorces. There'll be a few suicides, but we can do this, right? It's like, what? And the answer is no, you couldn't. I mean, people were doing all sorts of stupid things, right? They were
Yeah.
trying to put .NET in the kernel. Ooh.
Oh my God.
My favorite one was they said, "Oh, I know how we'll get everybody to use .NET. We'll make it part of the Windows Common Dialog Box." Right?
No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
Notepad, right? You fire up
Yeah.
Notepad native code. It's like comes up like that, and it's like 15 kilobytes of working memory, right? But then you go and you say save as, the common dialog box comes up
Mhm.
2 minutes later. 2 minutes later, as it's page
Because
faulting
it's
in,
yeah, because
all of a
it's an
sudden
issue. Yeah.
your set goes from 15K to 15 megs, and then you can save the file. I mean, it's just a disaster. So
No.
many bad decisions.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: at some point, it's like this isn't going to work.
Mhm.
Had to hit a hard reset. Had to like, hey, did somebody have a backup from the when Windows used to work? Like, no,
I
that's
need
what
the copy.
Dave Cutler saved the company because he had
Uh-huh.
the backup tape. Like the
Uh-huh.
one guy, he's like, "Yeah, this shit's not gonna work. I better pick a backup." Put on the shelf. They're like, "Hey, does anybody have a copy?" Dave's like, "I knew, I knew this was gonna come." Like that's really what happened.
Yep.
Um, so then everyone's like, okay, we're geniuses. We weren't idiots. It was .NET. .NET's the problem. And so then they turned on .NET and just threw it out of everything. And
Mhm.
at that point, .NET evil. And that's why to this day, Windows and .NET, no bueno, right?
Well, yeah.
They're
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
friends
Yeah.
because of this. And there were only two teams that stuck with .NET, me and then Scott Guthrie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Gagu. I remember.
ASP.NET.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the only way we worked was say, okay, well, we're going to pull ourselves out of Windows until we're ready, and then we'll come back in. And that took about 2 years before we were ready, because they went and set up these incredible draconian things like, okay, yeah, if you're going to put .NET into Windows, you have to do this, this, and this, and there were like 8 things you had to do, right? And so then looking at these, and they're like, oh my god, these are huge, these are hard. And so then we did them, like every single one, like how are we? I know we can do it this. And then we were getting ready, and it's like, hey, we're green on all these things. It's like, not good enough. We got to be greener than green. Go the extra mile. That's why there's some wonky stuff in PowerShell. It was all
Yeah.
about engineering this moment so that
Yep.
we could knock on that door and get in. Well, it turns out then we had it. We nailed it. We everything they asked us, we solved it. So then we knocked on the door and said, hey, we're ready to come in. And it turns out that's when there's the ninth requirement. And the ninth requirement is no fucking .NET in Windows. And you don't find out about that until you pass the first eight. I'm not making this up. So
Hard
literally,
rule. No .NET.
no effing .NET in Windows. Because literally, we sent in the request for design change request, and
Yep.
like 20 minutes later, Brian Valentine, the head of Windows, sends back this mail. It's like, you withdraw this request. No .NET in Windows. And the PM's like, Jeffrey, come here. I got this mail from Brian. What do I do? And I'm looking. I was like, I, he says, I know. He writes. He says, no, you turn it down. So that Brian turned it down. Now, at that
Uh,
point, the head of server and tools came in and said, hey, this is critical for my business. And then they got into this big fight, and
yeah.
eventually we succeeded. But the point is, like, there was like a couple year period when they had flipped the bit, when they were
Yeah.
after everybody, and they made my life so miserable you cannot
Yeah. Of course.
imagine.
Yeah. You have to
And
fight for it, and yeah.
and I thought about leaving, and say, "Hey, I need to put up with this shit." But then I was like,
Yeah.
"No, this is so good." And I thought, well, I could re-implement this outside. I could do a startup company. And I thought about that seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but then I was like, well, wait a second. If I do a startup company, if
You're
I get
not
a
gonna
hundred
do that
thousand,
much impact. Like if you get 100,000, you're talking about billions of people. That's it's like you're reading the thoughts of hundreds of engineers out there working in bigger enterprises and whatnot. The exact same just thought process. This is a great idea. It's not liked. Should I fight for it? I might lose my job. I might get demoted. I might get this. And then there's this painful area where you have to protect your vision and fight for your vision, and you still go through with it, and then you got to be right. You better be right, because if you're not right, a lot of people are like, well, I told you so. You should have listened.
no, you got it exactly right. You got
Yeah.
it exactly right. And so you had to add that. So the original question, which was a while ago, sorry I went on, but
Yep.
how do you get through this? And the answer is, you got to decide what matters.
Yep.
And what I decided was impact, right? And it goes back
Yep.
to like kind of core philosophy, right? I just believe that we're here on Earth for a reason,
Yep.
and for me, and by the way, there isn't like, you got to decide what that reason is.
Yep.
And for me, I wanted to leave the world a better place than
Yep.
I was when I
Yep.
came here. Well, that
Yep.
meant to have impact, and so
Yep.
having impact on 100,000 people is very different than having impact on millions.
That's right. That's
And
right.
if I shipped it in Windows, if I somehow put, and at some point, it's like, you know what? I don't care what you do to me. Uh,
I'm
like,
gonna
as
do it.
long as I get to ship this in Windows, like, I'm going to be okay. And that's what got me through it.
That what got you through it. I really appreciate that. There's just zeal and really persistence there. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. We're gonna talk about a
Okay.
topic that nobody talks about these days. Like
Mhm.
nobody talks about. It's
COBOL?
AI. Am I spelling it right? It's AI, artificial intelligence. Haven't seen anything about it in the market. When you talk about, I'm just kidding. Everyone's just now saying AI. I mean, actually, there are games that people play every time there's a big company announcement. They're like, all right, let's see how many times they're gonna say AI from the beginning till the end. Let's say that CEO, how much they're gonna say AI. But I know for someone like you, you're pragmatic, you're practical, you're not into the fluff. You're thinking system architecture, system design. You're thinking about something that's actually useful for the people. You just said that. You said, I want Windows administrators, to make a lot more money. I want them to be able to afford and provide for their families, put food on the table. Um, let's just from the beginning. I'm not going to talk about automation or anything. Just first impressions, Jeff and AI. How do you feel about all this that's happening right now?
Yeah, I'm a believer. I think that it is going to be by far the most disruptive force in our lifetimes. And so, why is this? And so, I used to say that that there was an infinite demand for computing,
Yep.
right? And why? Because computing was synthetic thought, right?
Yep.
And then, by the way, this is one of the reasons why. Why did Microsoft invest in PowerShell when there
Hmm.
was no money? There was no money involved, right?
Hmm.
And so, here's the argument that I made, right? I said, listen, there's an infinite demand for compute, infinite, because
Hmm.
it is synthetic thought. But that at every era there's a friction, which is the rate limiting factor in how much compute you can consume. In
Hmm.
the past, that used to be servers, right? Servers were expensive, so I can only afford a server, and that. But then all of a sudden, servers became cheap, and
Hmm.
virtual servers became cheaper, and cloud servers became even cheaper.
Yeah.
But then the rate limiting factor moved from expensive servers to people. People were expensive, right? Click, click,
That's right.
click. There's so many
That's right.
clicks I can do. And then there's another machine, click, click, click. Oh, it's different. I got to
Yeah.
undo that, etc. So, hey, if we can automate things, we can allow the same number of people to manage a far larger number of things. So
Hmm.
that's where we're gonna benefit is by empowering people to, basically spend their capital, shift their capital from machines and people to compute, and that the
Okay.
same number of people will be able to do far more compute. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's like, that's true. And so AI, I just think is that sort of that next level of like, now all of a sudden, like, what did it take to do that compute, that thinking, that synthetic thinking? And the
Yeah.
answer is you had to write programs, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, somebody referred to it recently as like the ultimate alchemy, right? Remember the alchemists,
Yeah.
right?
It's yeah. The alchemy.
Turn
Yeah.
something of no value, lead, into something of premium value,
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah.
And here, what we're doing is we're taking the most ubiquitous thing on earth, silicon, and turning it into the most valuable thing on earth, thought.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there is this, it is alchemy, it is sort of magic. And then like anything, the sorcerer's apprentice, like, how do I harness this thing? It's a Disney thing, some sorcerer, and then the thing
Yeah.
goes wild. That's sort of what AI is like. Like I used to say, at some level, you can think of it as just the next level of transition in programming models, right? We used to do assembly, and then we learned C, and it's like, oh, this is great. It's so much
Hmm.
easier. Da, da. Turns out you could write better C if you knew assembler, but it freed you up from a bunch of things. And then it was only true for about 5 years. After that, the C compilers and the machines meant your value in knowing assembly didn't add that much to your C. Same phenomena happened with C to C++. Same phenomena happened from C++ to C sharp,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
The same thing will happen here, but here's the difference, right? So now all of a sudden it's a new programming paradigm. I'm programming in English versus
Hmm.
C sharp.
Just yeah.
But here's the difference. In all those other paradigms, there was a book.
That's right.
There's a book, How to
Yeah.
Program in C++. Plus plus.
Yep.
This is like some alien came down and dropped this awesome programming language, but forgot to drop the
There's
manual.
no manual.
How are you doing it? Oh, I was able to do this. Oh, that's cool. Let me try that. Oh, it didn't work. Why? Oh, you forgot the adjective, my friend. You get those adjectives really matter.
Now everyone got to learn English again. Just to,
So we're all just like figuring this thing out. And
uh,
then even when we do figure it out, it changes. So at Google, I gave a number of prompt engineering workshops.
mhm.
Every time I gave the workshop, I'm reviewing my work. It's like, oh no, I got to throw this goddamn thing away. Like I
Yeah,
got to
I need to
start from
start over.
scratch
I start
because it
over.
kept
That's right.
changing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, but I know I'm a believer. It's absolutely real. So example, couple quarter or so ago, I tried the vibe coding stuff, and it's like, eh, eh.
Maybe. Mhm.
And then this weekend, like I had a problem, and I was like,
It
I'm using
grows
Quad Opus
exponentially. That's right.
4.6, and I'm
Hmm.
just shocked. I'm just shocked.
It's
And then it's like,
insane.
okay,
Yeah.
that's working. What about this? And it's like, Ah. And so I don't know if you heard there's this wonderful thing. It's like now all of a sudden, and by the way, so I'm not a designer, but I say, hey, use the design best practices, and I came up with some pretty good stuff.
It's
And
very powerful. But
yeah,
do you see it as a tool or a collaborator? Like, is AI, when you're interacting with AI, go ahead.
you
Go
got
ahead.
it. You got it. Well, part of it again was to get this. The aliens dropped this freaking artifact. What is it? And then there's, hey, if I do it this way, it feels good. When I do it that way, it hurts. So like figure that out. And but then it keeps morphing on us.
Yeah,
So by the way, in the end, you know, I in the end, it's like how do you use it to and make you up? One of my favorite things about PowerShell, when we had a beta test, someone's out there, they're using it, and they said, I did the following. I'm awesome. It's like, yes, 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 yes. PowerShell is not about PowerShell. PowerShell is about making people powerful,
that's
right?
right.
Not making them awesome. And that's
Enabling.
it. And that's why,
Yeah.
by the way, that's one of the reasons why people would get into this. Unix guys would come by, oh, Mike Powers Hell and MS dollar sign. And, oh, I think it sucks. And trying to bait me. And at first, there was this like defensiveness. And then it's
Yeah,
like, well, wait, what's my core mission? My core mission is I just want you to be successful.
that's
So
right.
then, like,
That's right.
hey, if you have a tool that's making you successful, like, yay, I'm happy for you. You don't like power.
Mhm,
What do I care? Like, as long
mhm.
as I care about you being successful, when you have that in your head. Anyway, so that's the idea. It's like, it's not about the tool, it's about you, it's about the people. How do you become successful? So AI, like I'm not a big fan of AI replacing people. I'm a big fan of AI enhancing
Enabling,
people.
enhancing. Yeah.
There's a lot
Mhm.
of conversation. Like I was just in one conversation the other day where they're talking about, oh, you know, we got to have, clear, measurable savings by the introduction of AI. And I said to my friends, I think the next 3 years are going to be a shit show.
Yeah, yeah.
and that we're going to look back 3 years from now and we'll think,
What
oh,
were we doing?
wasn't that quaint? We were focused in on savings and all this, right? When we should have been worried about survival
That's right.
and not savings, but revenue. Look,
That's
there's only
right.
so much money you can save. There's no limit to the amount of money you can make. And so
That's right.
savings, it's not nothing,
That's
but
right.
revenue is far more important than
That's
saving.
right. You could cover up your, if you're not doing too well on savings, but you're making enough revenue, you could cover that. It takes care of that. Well,
Yeah,
let
what's
me
that phrase? With enough thrust, you can get a bus into orbit.
let me follow up with you on this. Like what stack do you think, or what layer of the diff stack do you think is going to disappear because of AI, right? We think about it architecturally, right? You have all these different layers from the machine all the way up to the human, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to program, you're describing a behavior for a computer. What layer do you think is at most risk, if I
I
may?
think it's all up for grabs, right? So you know, have you read Butler Lamson's "There's Plenty of Room at the Top"?
I
It
don't
was a
think
riff on Feynman's "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom." Basically, he and a group of folks wrote, "There's plenty of room at the top." Basically, saying if you take a look at our software stack,
so.
it's just like an archaeological dig of abstractions that some of them serve us and a lot of them don't. And
Mm-hmm.
there's the potential to go and make each layer far more efficient or just collapse the layers. Just
Mm-hmm.
collapse the layers.
Mm.
So I think it's all up for grabs. All up for grabs. I
Okay.
don't have a
Okay.
particular, yeah. I think anybody who's like confident of anything is almost certainly wrong. Although, well, as we used to say at DEC consulting engineers, when I was DEC, finally got consulting engineer. Guy says, well, another one says, well, welcome to the club. Now you need to learn the motto. I said, we have a motto? Do we have a handshake? He says, no, we don't have a handshake, but we have a motto. I said, what's that? He says, often wrong, never uncertain. Anyway,
I like that.
these people who are certain are almost absolutely wrong because we'll be figuring it out.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
But then the question is, well, what are the interesting skill sets? So one, I think the most important skill is your ability to learn, and that's coupled with your desire to be curious and like not clinging, right? I remember
Yeah.
there was this great conversation. I wasn't there. I wish I was, between a bunch of IBM execs and a bunch of digital execs. They were out at dinner, and the IBM exec said, IBM is a 100-year-old technology company. Microsoft could be that, but you'll have to learn you can't cling.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
cling to anything.
Yeah.
And Microsoft did learn that, right? If Microsoft had clung to
Mhm.
Windows and clung to this animosity towards Unix,
Yeah.
we've never been in the cloud.
You wouldn't have Azure because most of Azure, yeah, like Azure is all Linux running servers, saving tons of, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You know, it's
So
true.
learn and don't cling and
Okay.
explore.
Okay. Let's switch away from AI. I have actually a question for you personally. Like, how do you know as a software engineer that you're building something foundational, especially when people are telling you it's not important. Don't worry about it. How do you know actually for sure?
So one is you have that plausible theory of success. So I recently wrote a blog. I don't know if you saw it. It's called "Welcome to the Room."
Mhm.
This is when I become a technical fellow. Satya Nadella, you invite, you get to, you're an exec, so you get to be in the room. It's crazy. You walk in, you're pinching yourself like, oh my God, look at
Is
these
this
people.
real? Is this happening? Yeah.
What am I doing here? At some point, they're all going to look at me and it's like, what's he doing here? But they didn't. He said, well, welcome to the room.
Mhm.
He stood up and he said, congratulations, your days of whining are over. In this room, in this room, we manufacture success. And then he went on to describe what leadership looked like. And a
Mhm.
core of that was that you had to have, you always had to have a theory of success,
Yep.
had to be a plausible theory of success, that you were always monitoring that theory of success, and that when it was no longer plausible, you were changing. Oh, sorry. You had to have a plausible theory of success. You had to allocate your resources according to that, right? So think of this. How many times have you gotten a memo from executives saying our strategy is X? And you look and you look at like who's working on
Thousands,
that?
thousands of times. Oh my God. Yeah. All the time. Yeah.
No one is doing that.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
like
Yep.
okay, well, I guess I'll wait and see what happens. And like, I don't know what they expected. Like, did they expect me to do that? Was I supposed to do that? Like, I didn't tell me to
What's
do
my
that.
part here? How do I play role?
So anyway, you have to have a theory of success. You have to allocate your resources to that theory. You have to monitor it and you have to change it. So, and then that's why I think I mentioned, hey, ability to learn, et cetera. But I think strategy, your
Mhm.
ability to have strategy is going to be one of the distinguishing characteristic, right? What is strategy? By the way, when you have those product market fit statements, that's functional strategy, right? That's what a theory of success looks like. People will like this because of this. There's more to it. Like I read something today, actually said good businesses don't have customers; they have hostages. Like what?
My God. Oh no.
It's a horrible thought, but there's a
Yeah.
strategy there, right?
Yeah.
So I just heard, and I need to look this up, see if it's true, but I just heard like Salesforce basically changed their terms of service
Mm.
so that the customers cannot use their data to train.
Oh. Okay.
What's that?
Okay.
It's like they
So
just
you can't
made all
actually.
their customers
Mm.
hostages.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
Like,
mhm.
hey, yeah, there's incredible value you can get from that data. That data is not yours. When it's in my store, it's not yours, it's
It's not
mine. And
interesting.
and I'll let you do it, but you got to use my AI. You can't use somebody else's. I think that's where that's going. I don't know. And again, I could get that wrong. Salesforce lawyers, just to be clear, could be wrong.
You're
But that's
actually you're actually right. This is a thing. It's late 2024 throughout 25. It says here that Salesforce here. Let me share it with you. You are actually I'm actually surprised. This is very interesting. Jeff here. As of late 2024 throughout 2025, Salesforce updated terms of service and introduced a strict AI acceptable use policy prohibits customers from using CRM or Slack data to train third-party AI models. Insane. No, you're right. Oh, wow.
so
I didn't even.
strategy. I mean,
Ah,
this is like, oh, change your terms of service. This is strategy. This is like
yeah.
monumental strategy. This is like billion-dollar decisions. By the way, that's why I say, like, somebody thought this out and said,
Mhm.
hey, there's this pivot point here, and we have this exposure. But if we do this, we can change the course of the future, right?
Yeah,
I guarantee whoever did that was not a busy exec. Okay.
probably.
If you're an
Yeah.
exec and you're busy, you're not taking the time to think about these decisions which are going to affect the future, these huge decisions, right?
Hmm.
You have to
Hmm.
you have to be able to delegate so you got time to think, to read,
Yes. High
to
quality
compare.
decisions. And yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Let me ask you this then. I mean, I guess this is such a big signal. This is a signal like a counter AI from a tech company that is at some point in time will be an incorporating AI within. Do you think a lot of companies will follow that trend? Because that's a trend, they're kind of creating a trend there, you know.
Well, I think there's going to be panic in the fields. And
Uh-huh.
as everybody tries to figure out, hey, what does this mean to me? Is this a threat? In which case, hey, I got to shut this down. My customers are going to be pissed. They're hostages. I got their data. What are they going to do? Right? Okay, well, I don't,
True.
or hey, is this an opportunity for me? Or is there some combination? I think there's just going to be panic in the streets as everybody's trying to figure things out, right? You take a look at Adobe, right?
Yeah.
Their stock price is up and it's down. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna use AI to make it great. Oh, but AI can replace. I don't even need Adobe. Crash. Oh, well, we're gonna do this. Oh, it's up. Oh,
Back
but
up
then this.
again. I just unsubscribed from Adobe. I was like, stop. This is annoying. I don't need you. Let me ask you one more question though. I'm actually very genuinely curious. If PowerShell was created in this age of AI, what would it look like? Would it be any different?
Oh, yeah, it would be completely different, but I have to say it's completely spiritually aligned, right? So if you think about PowerShell, what's what with that syntax, right? And the answer is it allows you to think, type, and get what you want.
That's right.
Hey, I'd like to get the processes where the handle counts are greater than 500. I'd like to sort it by handle counts. I'd like to format it as a table with name and handle counts. So there's a little syntactic sugar that once you learn, you think about what you want, you type it, and you get it. But
Hmm.
you got to think in terms of what's there. And the nice thing about it is I created a nice regular structure so that what's there is generally okay.
Hmm.
But you
Hmm.
can't do things like say, oh, I'd like to every night go to all the servers in this OU and Active Directory and check the file space,
Hmm.
the disk
Hmm.
space, and if it's under 3%, send an email to these four people. You can't do that, but you can do that in AI, and then
Yep.
you can write
Yep.
the script. And you
Yep.
want to check that script, by the way.
Just take a look at it once before you let it fly.
But you can now think, type, and get. So there's complete spiritual alignment. I love it. I love it. By the way,
Okay.
can I also suggest something to everybody read? And that is I don't know if you've read the Sequoia $10 trillion AI hypothesis.
Yep. Yep.
I,
Yep. Yep.
I have recommended that to more people in the world. There are three key things I got out of that. One
Hmm.
is the articulation of the economic value of AI. They
Hmm.
basically say, hey, the enabling power of an industrial revolution is not the thing that brings economic growth.
Hmm.
It like the steam engine didn't bring economic growth. It's only when you took the steam engine and put it in a factory that
Hmm.
then you produced economic growth. So it's actually the AI is not going to produce the economic growth. It might, but AI is not going to do it. It's when you take AI and apply it to a domain,
That's exactly right.
legal, accounting, et
That's
cetera.
exactly right.
That's where the
Yeah.
economic growth comes. So
That's right.
that's number one. That's a great articulation. And not quite right because there's a middle thing putting steam engines in railroads, but it's largely correct. But then the two other things was how he thought about agentic AI. He says, as a knowledge worker, you have a high degree of control over your outputs
Hmm.
and very low leverage. You got to
Hmm.
write all the code, baby. But
Yep.
you can write it any way you want. You can
Yep.
pick your variable names.
Yep.
Okay. Um, with agentic AI, you give up a level of control, but you dramatically increase your
Increase
leverage.
productivity. That's right.
And so
And
that's
impact.
that's a pretty
Hmm.
good deal.
Yeah.
But then the second thing was he had this. The last thing was this idea of K flops per knowledge worker. And I thought
Okay.
about like K-flops and knowledge worker. I was thinking, wait a second, think about like did a presentation, like I do a presentation, and I draw a graph, line, arrow, and it's like approximate K-flops 0.
Hmm.
Now I go to Nano Banana and I say something. So that's not it. I say something. And 4 things later, I got this fun image I placed in it. I've used a gazillion K flops, right? I
Hmm.
write an email. I was like, "You suck," and then I was like, "I probably shouldn't say that." Hey, Gemini, can you make this
Turn
more
it up a
diplomatic?
little.
Well, you're not the best. Anyway, so it does, and all of a sudden, again, from 0 K flops to a gazillion K flops for email. And so I looked at that and I said, oh, that's definitely right. This K flops per knowledge worker. And so then the question is, well, where are those K flops running, right? Lawyers ain't going to be setting up the legal data center.
Yeah.
Accountants ain't setting up the AI accountant center.
Yep.
Dental hygienists ain't setting up the dental hygienist data center.
Yep. Yep.
I am so bullish on hyperscalers. That boy, that was a smart play.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
fantastic. It's only 15 minutes. I've recommended it to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Do you think in this world of AI, speaking of hyperscalers, this one is from me, and then we can maybe we can wrap.
Okay.
Do you think decentralization has a chance in the world of AI? Like instead of having 50,000 data centers, no, everyone has a computer, everyone has a GPU. Why don't we create this decentralized common network that allows people to host LLMs and serve each other's requests on demand? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's always that tension. I have to say, I've always been a fan of the centralized and the. Well, so think about the web, right?
Yeah,
What is the web? The web is a 3270. You know what a
3270.
3270 is?
No, what's that? What's that?
IBM terminal. IBM
Okay.
terminal. So there's a back end mainframe, and then what does it do? Like a VT100, right?
Mhm,
Every key goes back and forth.
mhm,
The 3270, the mainframe would send effectively HTML, and
mhm,
then it would render these forms on your screen. You do all this input, it was all local, and then
mhm.
you hit the enter key. It literally entered the database as a bulk, it sent it back. And that model of like, hey, label the like state isn't local, state's always remote,
Yep,
and then local interactions. Now,
yep.
it turns out state can be local for caching,
That's right. That's
and
right.
then remote can be remote or some distributed system.
Yep,
So the idea of like, hey, replacing a monolithic backend with a distributed system and maybe even a peer-to-peer system, that's
mhm,
fine. As long as it's not the state thing that matters isn't coupled to a device.
that's
And
right.
then the device is a thing that is a high bandwidth, low latency interaction engine
That's
with
right.
enough state to support that, right? So
Yep,
caching to support that low latency, but then everything that gets transferred back. That's why I was a super big fan of like Microsoft Flow and
mhm,
that
mhm,
distributed data center. The idea of
mhm.
like, hey, I'll have these data objects that then could be eventually consistent across anything. And that model explicitly says,
That's
yeah,
exactly right.
single backend or distributed backend. I
Yep,
think, and you're working against data that is always local. It's always local, and therefore you always have, you never have that dead screen.
yep, yep. That's right. That's right. That's right. It's that different threads running in different, kind of different tasks and whatnot.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm really honored to talk to you today, and thank you so very much for allowing me to create this podcast and create this session with you.
I have to say, this
Uh,
is a really fun conversation.
I'm glad you found it fun. I did, I appreciate you for that, and I wish you all
Isn't
success.
isn't isn't technology just joyful?
By the way, just to let you know, the fact that I can connect to the internet, and this is gonna sound, to show my age here, but sitting in an airplane, sitting in a seat in the air, and I can connect to Wi-Fi, and I can talk to someone, maybe hundreds of thousands of miles away from me. I don't think we appreciate that enough. The fact that I just can see people who grew up and saw how computers and technology evolved over time have the most appreciation. Like right now, you might see a 5-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old just grumpy. The internet is so slow. Give it a second to go to the moon and come back. Can you give it a second?
I take it you've seen the Louis CK skit
I
on this?
did. I did. That's exactly where that's coming from.
It's so good. So
Give it
good.
1 second just for it to go and come back. That's exact. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate.
Yeah.
I tell people this all the time. Like you have a thing in your hand that's the equivalent of a mainframe back in the '60s and the '70s. that can do crazy stuff for you. You probably saw the bit with Jimmy Kimmel and the Back to the Future folks.
Oh,
He's like, I could triangulate, network and satellites to work on this device. We're like, no, we're just using it for emojis. Come on.
cat videos.
Yes. Thank you so, so very much. You're an amazing, kind person. I wish you all success, prosperity, and happiness, just as much as you built a technology that truly just helps people put food on the table, kind of have jobs. I know people that do full-time jobs, automation, they use PowerShell heavily, to do that, the connectivity of it and how it grew and how it became fundamental part, of every software engineer out there, whether they use it on daily basis or just need it for something real quick to process a file and do that. It just works. And on behalf of millions of engineers, thank you so very much for your work, and please keep going. Don't ever change. If it makes sense to you, just do it. Just do it.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much for inviting me on the show and for asking such a great set of questions. Again, the exchange with smart people, it brings out the best in them, brings out the
Get the
best in
juices
you.
going.
Yeah, really, it's a blast.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you. Take care. Take care.